Okay, before you watch this video, I got to give you a little bit of a trigger warning. There's going to be mentions of car accidents, death, and suicide. So if those are hard subjects for you to watch and you would rather just not, then this is your opportunity to scoot on out of here, and absolutely no love lost from me. Believe me, I get it. All right, okay. I have a whole Dean's List planned out. I have the whole thing set up to record. But instead, I'm going to do one of those really cringe YouTuber life update videos, but only because I'm so fucking proud of myself and I'm so stoked for what I've accomplished. And I'm not out here to kind of get any sort of sympathy or anything like that. But I've reached a place in my life right now where I finally feel like I can address a lot of the things that I've been dealing with behind the scenes and the growth that I've kind of seen from that. So I think I'm going to take all the Dean Project bravado out of this video, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about where I was about 7 years ago, and then what had happened, and then now what 7 years later looks like. Okay, so the Dean Project has been in my life now for it's going on 20 years. It's hard to imagine that that's a thing. I started this band with my friend Dean. His real name was Tyler, but we all called him Dean, and we all ribbed him at school, and at first he hated it. We'd be like, Dino Machino, Cappuccino Burrito! And he hated it so much, and we weren't really friends for the longest time in school, but then we became friends, and then we started the Dean Project when I sold him my old shitty drum kit. Years went by, I finished high school. I moved to Toronto to learn how to do animation at animation school, and Dean stayed where we started the Dean Project, which was in Prince Edward Island, which is a small little island on the east coast of Canada, where we grew up. So anyway, yeah, the Dean Project was long gone from my brain. I went to school. I was working at a coffee shop at the time. Oh man, this is so hard to talk about. Okay, so I'm in Toronto. I'm working at the coffee shop, and Dean just comes to visit. And we're like, dude, where did you come from? This is crazy. And we started hanging out, and then out of nowhere, we just started the Dean Project again. And the Dean Project has an ethos of just we would do anything kind of just to offend people. That was kind of all we did. We wanted to offend them sonically, with how bad we were at instruments. And we also wanted to offend them intellectually with awful ideas and bad opinions and stuff like that. And when we got back together in my 20s, no longer teenagers, we were still kind of the same sort of attitude, but instead of a Telecaster, I had an acoustic guitar, and we didn't have drums or anything. So what we would do is we would use macaroni boxes, and we also went to this outdoor hockey rink because I lived in a basement and I couldn't necessarily play live music there. So we went to a hockey rink, and in that hockey rink one night, after a week of jamming in the hockey rink, we saw a thing in the distance, and that thing was Munchie, the straight edge Nutcracker. And we saw him, and we're like, oh, we need a thing to use as a drum, and we're here at the hockey rink, and here's this Nutcracker. We used to record on the iPhone, so we clicked record, made up a song on the spot. I think it was about being freezing or something like that, and because it was pretty cold that evening. And we loved it. We fell in love with the sound of the Nutcracker. The Nutcracker was christened a part of the band. We named him Munchie that evening, and we started to come up with kind of lore and a backstory about Munchie. And all that we really had was that he was straight edge, and he was a Nutcracker. And that's all he really needed. He was Munchie, the straight edge Nutcracker, and he was our drum, and that was beautiful. So years went by. The Dean Project was an on-again, off-again thing because Dean didn't live here, if you remember from earlier in the story. So he would periodically come visit when his mother would buy him tickets to come see a band, either for his birthday or for Christmas. So I got Dean twice a year when he got birthday gifts from his mother to come visit Toronto. And when he came to Toronto, we tried to maximize our minutes together, okay? So we would record crazy songs, and when there was a promotion for the Vans Warped Tour, all right, there was a Battle of the Bands virtual thing happening or whatever, and we thought it would be a funny-ass idea to kind of troll the whole thing, so that's what we did. We wrote 6 or 7 songs about Dean traveling around the world, killing people, being a serial killer, and going on the run, and we recorded it on the iPhone, and of course, only like serious bands and people that are like chomping at the bit are fucking doing this thing, right? And we're not taking it seriously whatsoever. And then we end up getting like a whole shit ton of votes, and we're like, oh man, we might actually play the Warped Tour. But then they caught on to our kind of shenanigans because it was like an easy kind of voting system to rig. And being the Dean Project and being a bunch of trolls, of course we weren't being authentic with our presentation, and we were trying to snake the system in all the sleaziest kind of ways possible. And it didn't work out for our advantage because like the Warped Tour and the Vans people in charge of the stuff obviously caught on, because we were like really high in the ranking. They'd listen to the stuff and be like, there's no way these guys got this many votes sounding like this and talking about serial killing. Anyway, so it was those songs that in Toronto we were like, okay, we got to start playing shows. We can't play the Warped Tour, but we can at least fucking just get out there. We can, play an open mic, and then there's these pay-to-play shows where you got to promise to bring like 50 people. But we can promise that, just show up to play without any people. That sounds like a Dean Project strategy. So that is what we did. At this point, I was still living in a basement, but then I ended up moving into a pretty nice 2-bedroom apartment with my sister as a roommate, having Dean bounce back and forth while we're playing shows, while we're doing like open mics and that kind of thing. And then we get the idea, we can tour. Oh my God, we're starting to get a little following here on the internet. Not really anything to write home about. It was like all on Facebook, and now we've like totally obviously abandoned Facebook for all the right reasons. But we were like, okay, we can fucking play to people. Let's go out there and do this thing. So we started writing even more songs, and now we were starting to write songs less about kind of like trolly type things. We weren't going out and being like, Dean's killing people and having lots of fun killing people. We were kind of like writing lyrics, because I love writing lyrics, man. I like playing music that have lyrics in it. So I started to do that a little bit more. But of course, like sonically, we wanted to be rough around the edges, to say the least. We played on a Nutcracker, for Christ's sake. And where's our shaker? Our shaker's here somewhere. But anyway, you don't need to see the shaker. It's not really a, pivotal part of the story. So Dean's bouncing back and forth, and then we start to tour, okay? Now we're touring with these bands that Dean connected with online, and they don't know anything about the Dean Project. All they know is our songs about Dean killing people, and Dean might have like struck up a little bit of a friendly relationship with them, but we didn't really like personally know each other that we were going on the road with. Luckily, everybody on that first tour was so sick. I loved everyone a part of that thing. Inspire, influence. All right, we had the blatant ripoffs. We had Say We Can Fly. Man, that shit was so fun. That was like one of the best tour packages that I could even imagine, and it was just like handed to me out of nowhere. Of course, our Toronto shows, nobody came out, but everywhere throughout the rest of Canada, from Toronto eastward, we were playing to some people, and it was dope, and people were starting to kind of like see what we were all about, because on the internet, we really just seemed like a bunch of trolls that didn't give a shit about anything. But we actually kind of loved music, and we loved the music scene. We've been actually in the music scene for a long ass time, but because people had this kind of perception of us of being like a just for fun kind of joke band, they needed to see us live to understand the full like presentation of it all, because it was a wild time. It was a wild, sweaty, fucking raucous time at a Dean Project set for sure. But anyway, so we started to get a little bit of a following. Dean's going back and forth from PEI to Toronto, and on one of these tours, this was the one that was 7 years ago. I had a shift at the coffee place, okay, and then I had a show in a town about like 4 hours away, and then I had to come back after the show because I had to go back to the coffee place to open her up in the morning. And I was like, yeah, I can do that, no problem. And we went on that drive, and of course, like I tried to stay like as sober as fucking possible. Of course, I'm out there on the goddamn road. It's late at night. I'm doing like basically eight hours and a set. I want to be right as rain for my shift in the morning. And the set went really well. I loved it. It was so much fun. We hung out with a lot of people that we really fucking loved in that area. And then we were driving home. We dropped off our bass player in his town. And then we just kept on going until we were hit by a transport truck. And that happened. The car was completely demolished. Dean ended up dying on that evening. And I can't believe to this day that I survived that. I can't believe to this day that I walked away from that crash. Being able to walk with my arms and my legs and, not too much brain damage and not too much PTSD. But all of that changed my life like in a second. We were rocking, we were rolling, we were touring, we were playing shows, we were fucking putting out EPs, and we were just like being the Dean Project that we knew we could be, and we were working on getting Dean to Toronto so we could be like the full actualized Dean Project vision that we both had. And on that evening, all that was kind of ripped away from me. All that work, all that effort, even though a lot of it was just trolling in the beginning, we did love it. Okay, this was like our major thing in our life. All right, it was like that was our main defining characteristic of our like individuality, was that we were in the Dean Project. And it was just like, all right, well, that's no longer a thing. Adios, amigos. Long story short, I ended up having to move out of the apartment with my sister and move into another place. And I still have like a bunch of Dean's stuff. And this is actually the original Munchie that was in that crash. He suffered like a split head or whatever. And we taped him up solid with some caulking and painted him up. That is not, you can't really see it, but my guitar's off screen here. I ended up buying the same guitar that was ruined in that crash. But anyway, after all that went down and I moved, I was like, man, oh man, did the rebuilding have to start there. Because my body was in like a tremendous amount of pain. My hips and my knees and like my shoulders a little bit, but mostly my hips, they would just like kill all the time. And it was not a fun time. And in my like stupidity, I was like, okay, I can still like play music or whatever, but I was like actually kind of losing it. And when I look back at that moment in my life, I was like, yeah, man, you were insane. And I don't know how one wouldn't be after going through that and having their whole like life's dream kind of, we'll just have that right now, please and thank you. And I went a little crazy. I started making like weird ass pop music. I put out a weird ass hip hop experimental thing. I actually like pressed the vinyl. I spent so much money on it. That was like an insane person move. I didn't like start the project and build a following. I just like made the stuff and pressed like 250 vinyl for goddamn no reason. 3 songs on 12-inch records. Like, man, how does someone come to that decision in their life? So I needed to like fix a lot of shit. So I was seeing a therapist and I was getting massages and chiropractor and physiotherapy and really trying to get myself back to a place of like sanity, because I was away from the coffee shop during all this. Of course, they let me have some time off. And then after like 3 or 4 years of working at my mental health and my hips and my fucking arms and my shoulders and my just physical well-being, I was able to go back to work. And that was great because I needed to feel less insane. And when I went back to work and I didn't really have like a creative outlet, I felt like fucked up in the head. I was like, no, okay, this isn't all right. Like, yeah, I'm doing great. I'm back to work. My head's good. I'm not breaking down and crying every day. Everything is fucking dope. And then I was like, I need something. And music was a trigger at that point. I was like, I don't want to hear the word Dean Project. I don't want to lay my fucking hands on a guitar. And during this whole 3 or 4 year period, and during the transition from my sister's apartment, well, it wasn't her apartment, and the apartment that I lived with my sister, to where I moved to after that, I was with a woman. I had a girlfriend at the time, and she was like a huge support during that whole thing. And, you know, we fell like madly in love, and we supported each other endlessly, and it was just like a lovely, beautiful time. And she really helped me get over all of the stuff that I was going through, and I felt like I was helping her get over all the shit that she was going through. And yeah, so I was back to work. I had the girlfriend, and now I needed a creative outlet. So I started to do improv. Like, I went to Second City. Second City, you know, the renowned like improv company that had like so many fucking stars come out of there. So like, all right, man, I'm gonna go fucking learn how to do improv. fucking go see what that's all about. Ended up loving doing it. I went through the whole program, did all A through E was what they call it, right? So I did that. I started to do improv shows, and then being back on a stage and making people laugh and just fumbling around, it was it made me miss the Dean Project so much at this point. Now it's been 4-5 years. Dean's been gone. I've been dealing with all my stuff. I've been using improv as an outlet after all the therapy, physical and mental. And I felt oh man, okay, now all this shit is kind of locking into place. And then my girlfriend commits suicide. I know, right? How does one huge tragedy happen right to the same person after another humongous, life-changing goddamn tragedy? But I don't know. I don't have the answers for that. All I know is that both of these things happened in my life, and they were hugely impactful on everything that went on around me. And it was up to nobody but myself to dig myself out of that rut, get myself into a position where I can mentally and physically be at work and feel like I'm doing a good job there. And I'm a shift supervisor at the coffee shop, and people rely on me. They depend on me to be able to guide them and coach them through their shifts. And I was finally there. And then when the incident happened with my girlfriend, of course that was another life-shattering thing. But of course, I didn't stop going to work, and I didn't stop doing improv, only for the interim. Of course, there was the funeral and the immediate grieving. But I didn't take any extended leaves of absence of it all. But through all that, I started to play music again, because music is really how I express myself when I'm in tremendous sorrow. So yeah, and then I started to be oh, this is so fun, but I don't want to play shows all doom and gloom. So of course there was more therapy, and I finally got to a place where I was able to laugh again, and I was able to find humor and stuff, and I was able to have friends again, and I was able to see other people again, and it was so dope. But the byproduct of what happened to me was that this person who was no longer with me, her stuff was now all over my apartment, right? So after the whole thing went down, I had to come back from where the funeral was taking place. And basically the first step was to just box it all up and put it into one space. That one space happened to be my studio and my back room. And so I was crammed in here with all that stuff. And even though I felt I was doing all the therapy and doing all the talking and doing all the physical stuff that I need to do, my diet and my sleep, even though my diet does suck, admittedly, but I am eating, right? But when this kind of thing happens to people, they can just stop eating completely. And that didn't happen to me. I was able to, keep eating at regular times. And for that, I was pretty stoked about. The sleep was pretty shitty, of course, at first during both things. But through meditation and all these other little coping tools that you can learn, I was able to go to sleep again and find a way to separate the room from the rest of my life. So when I go into the bedroom, it means sleepy time, and when I go there, I have a sleepy time. And I've been pretty successful with that now for a couple of years. But now, since the girlfriend incident, it has been just a little over 3 years, and the shit was still everywhere, man, and I needed to get rid of it. It had to go. So I called the guy, and the guy came, and the guy took all my shit the other day. And now I've never felt more relieved. I've never felt more at peace. I feel 7 years of rebuilding, 7 years of therapy, 7 years of trying to build the vision of a life that I have in my head. And now I fucking have it. Now I have everything that I've ever had for myself. I have exactly what I had before the crash, and then a level up from that. And I can't even I don't have the words. I'm so mumbly and all over the place right now because I can't believe it. I haven't even processed it all yet, as you can probably tell by like how flushed and sweaty and like excited I am just to have this space to live in, to have this space to make videos in, to have this space to make music again. And now I want to put out fucking EPs again. I feel like the life that I have in my brain can be the actual life that I have in the real world. And that's so crazy to think that during a global pandemic, I was able to find a way to like fight through that all on top of all the other shit that I was going through, and have something to be super fucking proud of. Now, I was going to kind of include like a little bit of a house tour because I kind of want to flex it a little bit. I kind of want to be like, hey, look at all this dope shit that I did. But that's not really the point of this video. This is a bit of catharsis. This is just coming out and finally addressing all the shit that has been going on behind the scenes in my life. So for anyone that has been wondering like why I've fallen off the map or the radar in any way, I hope this kind of like helps clear that up a little bit. And then now I hope that you're excited to stay with me on this journey, and grow from here, because I only have goals. I only have aspirations. I only want to get more and more things that I have in my brain, you know? And none of it is like, I'm trying for it to not be all like attention and all like vain and clout stuff. But I love the Dean Project. I want to get the message of the Dean Project out to as many people that will appreciate it, you know? I don't want to cater to what any sort of particular genre demands of me. I just want to be able to do the thing, and hopefully I can do that in a way that, resonates with a couple people that come back and watch the videos, because that would just be so sick to be able to do this as like my life. And I think that in this video, me talking about all this stuff, addressing it, talking to a camera, doing the thing, I hope that was enough to prove to you that I'm in this to fucking win this, all right? And I'm good enough to do this. I'm not only good enough to do this, I could be considered great if I fucking keep up with this. So if you just have a lot of support for me, if you tell other people, man, this guy on fucking YouTube, he's fucking sick, this guy's so dope, then I would love that. But I can't say that, okay? And that's dirty of me to be like, hey man, my content's fucking awesome, you can go check me out. But if you guys were to like support me and back me up in this fight, then maybe I can have YouTube and music as a life again. And then if shows are a thing and you can play shows, because I miss live shows, I miss the stage, and I just want to be back there doing that shit, you know. So since I can't do live shows, I've been live on Twitch. Follow me on Twitch, the Dean Project. This could have been a Twitch stream. I'm sure I've been fucking recording now for like, 23 minutes or so. I'm going to chop out some of it. I stumbled a little bit of the way through because it was emotional content. So thank you so much for watching that emotional content. If you enjoyed it, please just scroll on down, spank a little like on it. It would really mean a lot to me if you shared this video. I think maybe some people might be able to get something out of it, you know? I'm not sure if that's the case, but I've been inspired by content on the internet where I was like, man, I just need to hear something that gives me hope right now. And I was in a vacuum of hopelessness 7 years ago, and now I am more hopeful and more stoked about the future than I've ever been in my life. I have a space for me, built by me, to accommodate my lifestyle, and I think that that's something that everybody can do. So if you can share this video, maybe this message can get to somebody that really needs it right now. And that's going to be it for me. Thank you so much for watching.